Okay, so good morning. So today I'd like to talk on the kind of very generic topic on the productivity, methodologies, and human-centered design, what I learned in Silicon Valley. I'm sure I'm not gonna be kind of cover everything. It's kind of so diverse and the profound topics. Well, let's try. I will try my best. So basically, as some of you already know, I was working for a very secretive company in California that is constructing spaceship. And because of the highly confidential and secretive nature, I'm not kind of able to talk about what I did for the kind of past 5 years, unfortunately, especially under kind of video recording. So, I kind of decided to make a different move, kind of focusing on something different, talking about some kind of findings, my experiences, something that might be kind of informative for the PFN. So that is the topic I chose. So disclaimer, my views may be somewhat biased because I only work for a single US company and I haven't worked to any more research-oriented company. And I'm not proposing to kind of, we should adopt or we should do this. I'm just sharing the findings I had, and it might or might not match PFN culture. And I'm not an expert on the topics I'm presenting today, but yeah, I will try my best. So I'm going to go over these 3 topics: productivity, methodologies, and human-centered design. So let's start from productivity. Productivity is a very kind of important keyword that we are all concerned about. And the Silicon Valley people are really kind of obsessed with maximizing productivity. So they hate to waste time. They are always thinking of the better way to use time more efficiently. So I could feel kind of strong kind of point from people. So there are some kind of important aspects to maximize your productivity. So first, you need to have a good kind of deep concentration. And ideally, it shouldn't be interrupted. It should be continuous, longer time. So one of the things we could do is to minimize the number or the duration of the meetings and try to minimize the disturbance from outside. And the second thing is the time and task management. Also, it's important to keep you motivated. You need to have something that keeps you motivated. And also, health is probably underappreciated in Japan, but it's very, very important things that Silicon Valley people are concerned. I think more than like 70 or 80%, probably more, people are kind of exercising on a regular basis because they know kind of maintaining good health is one of the kind of critical factor for your productivity. So let me talk about my findings from meetings from my previous workplace. So people really hate meetings because it kind of stealing time from you, and you cannot concentrate on your things during the meetings. So people first always try to find alternative ways of communication. So if it's a meeting of the kind of very few people, it could be done by just maybe chatting on a corridor or chatting in somebody's room or maybe grabbing coffee. That might work. And if you need to have a meeting, then only invite a minimal set of people, because inviting some extra people is wasting time from them. And I kind of recall that each meeting was like a battlefield in my expression. So I'm not saying that people are exchanging very bad efforts or something. That's not my point. So people are really kind of competing each other to make the kind of most contribution to the meeting. So once you're invited to a meeting, you have to contribute to the discussion. It can be useful comments, or it can be feedback for other people, or it might be providing different perspectives. But if you don't contribute to the discussion, you're not going to be invited to the meeting anymore. So that's really kind of tough, especially for the kind of first few years when I started working in US. And also, each meeting I found was really kind of well organized. This may be a kind of good practice for PFN as well. So each meeting, like organizer, have to send out the agenda describing the goal of the meeting and what kind of things you want to discuss. Then all the attendees can think of their own ideas in advance. And then once the meeting starts, you guys just get together and kind of go straight to the point, discuss ideas, and reach to the conclusion. So it's very efficient. And also, sharing the agenda have a benefit that the people can kind of agree. They have the kind of consensus on what's going to be discussed. So the discussion doesn't diverge easily. And at the end of the meeting, it was considered very important to have clear commitment and action plans. So no meeting was considered success unless you come up with action plan and draw kind of commitment from all the people. So it's like, I will do this part by this date, or I will do this part, and but let me help this part, or yeah, blah blah blah. And that doesn't need to be a very strict commitment. So you kind of say, I want to finish do this by this day, but you could extend it if the situation has changed. But making commitment keeps you motivated because you want to kind of keep the promise to get trusted by people. And also it's kind of making project management easier. So next, I wanted to talk about some of the methodologies because the Silicon Valley have invented numerous numbers of methodologies that can maximize your productivity, or that can maximize productivity of your team, or something that can boost your creativity. And just to name a few, Agile, Scrum kind of methodologies, Lean Startup, as Miyoshi-san mentioned, and design thinking, getting things done. There's a very long list under this. And I'm quite sure Morita-san is probably lecture on the Agile sometime. So I'm skipping this part, and let me focus on the design thinking in the second half of the talk. Okay. And the second topic I wanted to talk is the human-centered design. I feel like I'm not qualified to talk about this, but I wanted to bring this up because it's something that might be important for the PFN for the future. So design is not just the superficial cosmetic design, but rather I'm talking about more kind of end-to-end design of the product design, the design of the functionality, and also design of how the people is going to use it. And eventually, we need to bring kind of deep learning technology into the people's life and changing people's life. That we need to envision what kind of change we're going to bring to the people's life. So that will be the kind of fundamental goal of this kind of human-centered design. And once we have a good vision on kind of what our technology, how our technology can change people's lives, then we can kind of introduce our kind of top-to-down view from the top-level design to the individual technological component and research areas. And so that might have a kind of good impact on the prioritization of our projects. And designs are kind of diverse areas, and there are many principles, and different people talk about different things. But let me draw one kind of human interface guidelines from my previous workplace. So it's more kind of biased to the UI or UX design, but it is stating these 6 points. So the first part is the aesthetic integrity, so which means the kind of whole appearance of the design. So it should be beautiful at first, and then it should be matching the message you want to convey to the user. If it's a kind of fun chat app, maybe having more fun coloring or design would be better. And also, the second point is a consistency. That is about all the probably the shapes, coloring, or the icons. All those design of small pieces should be consistent across the system, so the user can always clearly get the message from each design indicators. And direct manipulation means you're kind of touching, clicking, tapping, all those actions are directly kind of controlling the UI. I think it is iPhone has originally implemented this idea quite successfully. And the system has to have a proper feedback based on the state of the system. And metaphors here are kind of using the real world metaphors like camera icon or heart icon, pens, that type of things. So that user can easily map the actual visual indicator to the real world analogies. Okay. So I'm just describing these Apple's HI guidelines. Well, I believe at least some of these ideas can be kind of applied to the non-UI, more like a product design, and the other parts of our development as well. And if we're moving towards more like industrial product, here's an example of the JR's ticket gate. So it was originally designed by Yamanaka Sensei in KOSFC, and coming up with this kind of great interface really takes time, and it will require really numerous numbers of prototypes, sketches, ideas, that type of things. So the first prototype, 95, what I read is at that time, the users, the machine had difficulties recognizing users' touches more than 50%, because some users didn't know how to use a card and how to tap, or some user recognized how to tap, but they do it too fast, so the system couldn't recognize it. So I think their group has built lots of mock-ups, prototypes, and then finally reached this 97 version, which has the kind of, what was that? I think it's 13.5 degree slope on this direction. That will help users to kind of clearly understand they need to tap on there and hold it there for a short moment. Then the accuracy is over 99% by UI improvement. So it's not just about aesthetic design, it's all about how kind of thinking in a people's way and how comfortable people can use that kind of machines. And when considering such a design-based approach, one of the Silicon Valley's methodologies is called design thinking. So it was originally developed, proposed by this Tim Brown at IDEO. I think it's a consulting company. And the basic idea is they are trying to apply designers' ways of thinking to the software or product development process. And typically, they break down the whole process into 5 steps: empathize, define, ideate, prototype, test. And it's not that we are following these steps, but I kind of feel Plamo, NLP, and robot projects are roughly following this kind of steps. So the first part is quite important step in this design thinking. So that is a process to empathize. So, you basically feels, analyzes users' pain points by observing or interviewing the users. For Plamo's case, we kind of went to many warehouses or storages and kind of observed what kind of problems they have and what kind of solutions we can apply. So we did that kind of analysis. So after you understand the pain points of the users, you define the problem. When you define the problem, you ideate it. Ideate is more like the kind of finding a solution to solve the problem. It's more like a brainstorming process. And then prototype, there's some visible things, and then test, get feedback from users. And maybe in a lean startup kind of idea, you could repeat this process and make a kind of continuous improvement on the product. And I don't have time to go through each of these steps, so let me only pick the ideate part, which is more like a brainstorming process. But I really kind of had an impression that there's a lot of kind of findings or researches in US how to have a better brainstorming. And my previous team was really kind of good at this kind of approach. So the basic principle is diverge and converge. So the first half of the brainstorming should be kind of focusing on quantity. So you need to come up with many ideas, not caring quality. And for the second half, you take good amount of time to converge, taking time to kind of converge and summarize. And one of the important things in this kind of brainstorming is to how to make people think outside the box. 型にはまらない的な感じです。So the brainstorming session has to have a very good atmosphere that is welcoming crazy or stupid ideas. And if people only talk about something not stupid or not crazy, then you have to encourage people to go crazy. That's actually pretty important. Otherwise, you cannot come up with something innovative. And you're not allowed to argue or discuss the ideas. It's a process to come up with new ideas in a kind of good pace. So if you discuss that kind of good flow of the brainstorming has to be stopped. And for the more diverse opinions, it's of course important to invite diverse group of people. Also, the role of facilitator is actually quite important. One of the kind of primary mission is to create momentum and keeping up the pace. If you stop, people might get bored. Brainstorming can go long. But if you're keeping up with a good pace, new idea, then you kind of have a good rhythm, and it can be more creative. And the facilitator can use several idea generating techniques. I think it's written in many documents, but it is advised to kind of come up with some good and non-standard ideas he or she can show as an example in advance. Then it can be used when people kind of are constrained in a kind of standard, not surprising ideas. And some articles also mentioned that brainstorming is actually better to be done off-site. So off-site means not at the office. If you brainstorm in the office, you just think and behave just like everyday work, and you're not gonna kind of get the very creative idea out of it. And also, off-site brainstorming can kind of make people more committed. Usually, people discouraged to use cell phones or Slack chat or any disturbances, and they commit to the discussion with a kind of 100% focus. And I've seen a couple of quite successful brainstorming, and that was working maybe this way. It wasn't off-site, but I think people really committed, and we were able to come up with a very innovative ideas. So yeah, that's pretty much it. So to summarize, sorry, it's kind of combination of very different topics. But what I wanted to mention is so we are of course trying to make innovation, bring innovation to the world. But it is probably quite important. It shouldn't be underappreciated to learn about the methodologies that Silicon Valley have tried. And discussions in brainstorming should be as serious as possible, 100% committed. And if we are kind of moving towards more like consumer products, we need to have a kind of good design, human-centered design way of thinking, and connecting low-level technological innovation to the top-level design that will really kind of influence and change people's life. Okay, that's it.
It's more time this.
All time.
Do we have questions? So about interruption, which prevent us to concentrate. I think Slack is probably invented in Silicon Valley, and I think Slack is a factor that prevents us to concentrate so much. What do you think, or what Apple does?
Yeah, well, I think it's your choice. So you don't need to be checking Slack all the time, right? And so the problem with the meeting is that your time is constrained. You have to be there, enjoy the discussion. But Slack or email, you have the freedom to kind of delay. And if you want to focus on something, you just focus on something for 1 hour without looking at Slack. And then, maybe for your break time, check the Slack. Yeah, I kind of feel something similar. So because Slack is new to me at PFN, I'm still haven't found a good way to not being disturbed by Slack. I try to kind of separate the time. I focus on something and check Slack and go back and forth. But if anyway you have kind of better idea, I think it's really worth sharing it it might be beneficial for everybody.
Well, I personally check it when I'm compiling my code, but you don't have that when you're using Python.
I try not to.
When you're training.
I think it really depends on your personality and your nature. Some person are really good at multitasking. So even if you are checking Slack regularly, you are not easily disturbed, so you can just go back to the original work. But I personally cannot do it, so I try not to be disturbed that frequently. Great. Thank you, Paul.
So what are the best habits that you learned from your time in Silicon Valley that you still do?
Best. I'm still kind of using getting things done, GTD style task management for my personal task things. And yeah, I'm also trying to find a way not to be disturbed easily. Maybe not checking Slack all the time. Sometimes hiding, kind of moving away Slack from the current window, current display to the side display. And I only watch the side display once in half an hour or something. Well, that type of things.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much.